Welcome to How to Open a Dental Practice podcast, your educational hub for all things practice development.
All right, guys, this past 3-4 weeks, I've been visiting a lot of practices, and I got a bunch of unique situations that I want to kind of go over and see what your advices would be to these doctors that, I've visited and I've talked to about their situation. First situation, one of the doctors leases a condo space, is leasing a dental practice that she purchased from another dentist who owns the condo space. All right.
Okay.
So it's an older building. I'm just gonna visualize it for you guys. All right. It's an older building, stick built, right? And
One story.
Okay. She goes in there. She buys the practice from the dentist, right? And then she's leasing the space. So the dentist the dentist that sold the practice still owns the space,
Sure.
right? With an understanding that she will buy the space in the future.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the future has come and passed because the lease is expired, and this dentist is saying, let's go lease another 5 years. But the existing dentist that has bought the practice is ready to purchase that space. She's also gone ahead and purchased the condo next door, right? So she leases the dental practice that she's practicing in, and she bought the condo right adjacent, right? So they called me up and I asked, what is the point of the conversation? What are we here to discuss? And then she told me the story, and she's like, I bought this condo because I want to bring in aesthetics, estheticians, and do sleep apnea studies next door. However, I might switch my dental practice because my landlord is not selling to me. And they want me to sign the lease, right? So the conversation went towards, okay, if you were to expand, would it be one practice? She's like, I want to make it one practice, okay? One, I want to make sure it's clear to everyone that it doesn't matter if you're leasing one condo and owning the other condo. You can tear it down and build one space.
Sure.
Doesn't matter if you're leasing and owning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, coming from your perspective, right? Number two, what's the... what advice would you guys give this? What did she do?
Okay, so I guess starting off with the advice, right? I have to assume that the seller is asking for another 5 years because they're probably trying to avoid capital gains tax, or they just want to continue to generate revenue and then have a lump sum payment at the end of those 5 years, right? Those are the only two logical paths. The third one would just be they never intended to sell to begin with, right? But let's assume we're dealing with good people, right? So if that's the case, then I wonder if the idea of owner financing has been brought up, because if they are trying to avoid capital gains on the sale, then they could do owner financing with a balloon payment on year 5 and then go from there. That way they continue to generate revenue as the seller plus interest, plus they don't get hit with a lump sum capital gains. They lower that amount, assuming there is capital gains. And then there's an exit strategy.
Yeah, but capital gains only will come into play if the guy just purchased the practice not that long ago, right? I mean,
it would be the value of the property. So assuming the selling doctor bought it a long time ago, and I would assume that that's correct, because then he or she sold that practice to a buying doc, then the owning entity has depreciated for however long, and in commercial real estate you can depreciate for 39 and a half years. So when you do that, at some point, you've hit the full depreciation and the value of the asset has gained. And so therefore, when you go to sell, the difference in what the base purchase price was versus what future sale would be, I assume would be large. So therefore, there would capital gains.
But it's interesting. It never crossed my mind on the seller financing, but that is definitely an option.
Yeah.
That he has. Talk to me about, let's assume this doctor moves next door, just moves her practice next door. What happens to that guy's practice?
I mean, we've done it, right? Where there's a practice that is vacant and ready to be occupied. You know, it's built out. Right. I mean, there's a value there. So the risk of the doc doing that is that they just end up having a competitor come into the vacant space that's built out for a dental practice.
But let's talk about that. Would a competitor startup dentist come in right next to a?
Likely not, but maybe a satellite or
specialty.
depending on the circumstance and the area and how desirable it is. Like, it's not ever not
Kind of
possible.
what I want to touch on. Is
Yeah.
the area even desirable? Did you ask why they want to be in this specific condo if they're not really getting their idea set up for their practice and this kind of branch that they want to bring into the business?
Well, obviously, if they bought the business, it's been a long time
Yeah.
business, so
Yeah.
I have to assume that it's doing well, and it was doing well while I was there. Like, I
Right,
see
right.
patients in there, so no, it didn't cross my mind to see if they would move. Obviously,
Yeah.
they don't want to move.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
want to
All-
stay. Not only
Right.
they want to stay, they want to purchase, right?
All the patients
Yeah.
know they're there. I would say here's the problem, right? Like, when you're not thinking of the leverage and you're just assuming, like, okay, great, I'll buy this practice, and eventually the owner of the condo that was the business owner will sell it to me. If you don't create parameters around what that sale looks like, you're just creating a circumstance where you're disadvantaged, and some of the reasons they would be disadvantaged. One, there was never a date established as to when they need to buy. Second, there was never a method for calculating what it's worth, because now you're selling a revenue generating property to the person that actually occupies it. So the seller has an option to either sell a condo that generates revenue to an investor, or they can sell it for that same price, a premium, because there's cash flow, to the dentist themselves, right? So they have all the leverage to charge over market or based on
So
cash flow.
I get it, but now with the doctor, the one that's operating in there, buying next door, right, adjacent
Yeah.
space, right?
Yeah.
With the situation that's going on, who has better leverage in negotiating? Is it them or is it still the seller in your mind? Do you think the place values or devalues when this doctor leaves and goes next door?
I still think advantage to seller.
Really?
I do. And I'll tell you why. Because advantage to seller, because the infrastructure is already there. So the amount of money that you're going to have to put in to fix the adjacent suite, also the opportunity cost, because you're going to put estheticians and other programs in there that were going to generate revenue, it diminishes because now you're just moving one business to the
No,
other.
I
Plus
get it.
the-
I get it. But that doctor, remember, that doctor does not have the name of the practice, right? If I build adjacent, assume you own one of the spaces and I'm right next to it, right?
Yeah.
I'm moving my practice from your space next door,
Yeah.
right? Yes, your space is built out,
Yeah.
but I own that name, so I'm moving the practice. Now, in my opinion, the way I see it is I think that space devalues, which I'm giving the advantage and the upper hand or leverage to the tenant,
Sure.
saying, look, this could happen. You got to tell this to the seller that once I leave, your building devalues, in my opinion. I don't think they sell to anybody else other than a dentist.
Yeah.
I don't think a dentist will come in. So it devalues.
I think that from the standpoint of a value proposition of a condo, regardless of whether it is built out for a dental practice or general office use, that you're absolutely right. If you can't sell it at a premium because of its existing infrastructure to a dentist, then you will be selling for a loss. But see, I don't think it's a loss. I think that's a misperception.
Well, I'm not
because-
saying it's a loss. What
Yeah.
I'm saying is if you were planning on selling this condo unit, say 600,000,
Yeah.
right? And you got build profit margins in there because you have a tenant,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
Once, in my opinion, that tenant leaves,
Right. Oh yeah, it's worth
not only it's worth less,
Right.
it's worth even less because that tenant is right next door. That eliminate, in my opinion,
Yeah, it eliminates, any other doc from coming in there.
it definitely eliminates general dentists from coming
Sure,
in.
sure,
If this
sure.
one is a general dentist,
Sure.
right? So your only bet is maybe put a specialist in there.
Yeah.
But even that, if I'm the dentist moving
Yeah.
and I'm a general dentist, the specialty is even going to help me.
Mm.
So I have more incentive to move. It's like, for me, it's like, look, let's play it that way. Like,
Yeah.
let me move
Right.
and then use that as leverage.
See,
right?
I see it kind of the other way.
Sell it to me or I'm moving.
I see what you're saying, but here's the thing: like, as the seller, and you bought adjacent, from my mind, without knowing your like operational plan, right, which is like the estheticians, everything that this person described to you, I would think that you bought adjacent with the purpose of expanding your practice. So now you need my condo more than ever in order to have growth in your practice, so that you can expand the opportunities that are there. So from a seller standpoint, if I didn't know that information, I would think I have the leverage, and therefore I would bluff pretty hard.
I'm very interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
But I, in my opinion, right now, based on that, I would rather be the tenant than the seller, because in my opinion, I think I can probably buy this. I have nothing to lose. I'm moving, or or I'm buying yours at a better price, not full market rate.
But I think that's where you know, having a third party that can analyze the situation and understand the seller's goals and the buyer's goals, rather the existing tenant's goals, can bridge the gap. Because I don't know. If,
No, you can definitely get a mediator there and bridge the gap and understand. But right now, if the seller is playing hard to sell, I guess the point is, are they risking too much? In my opinion, I think they're risking too much.
The seller.
Yeah, because
because
you're
if
big
you-
horn.
if
You're
you
like,
lose your
I'm not
revenue-
selling. You lose that. It's at least a coin flip. Is your space going to be worth as much as you think it's worth?
Yeah.
Right. I think based on, and that's why I mentioned it. This is an older condo.
Mhm.
It's not one of those condos that's very attractive where anybody can buy it. Everyone would buy it, right?
Sure.
And with the market the way it is, I don't see CPAs going into it and paying the amount that he would want. I don't see attorneys going into it and paying the amount. So he's going to be stuck to that dental medical type of doctors, and it eliminates dentists only because the dentist that's been operating there for a long time. Look, the dentist that's operating there for a long time is there next door.
Mm-hmm.
So even an experienced dentist is going to have a hard time coming next to him.
You know what? I mean, I think there's another perspective here too. Is like, how far along is that seller in their payment of the condo? Do they own it outright or not? Because if they own it outright, then I'm like, if I don't get my price, then I'm just going to lease it real cheap.
I'm not
Still continue
evaluating why he's not selling.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was discussed.
Sure.
And now he's kind of pulling back, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And he's not saying he's not selling. He's saying, let's rent another 5 years and then we'll sell, right? Which
is a red flag for me as a tenant, because I'm like,
that's
so
what's happening.
You want me to sign on for another 5 so you can sell to an investor.
That's right.
Right.
That's what's happening.
So unless my lease has a first right refusal in it, then I probably wouldn't sign.
Next scenario, I don't want to spend too much on this topic because we got a couple of them to kind of cover.
Sure.
Scenario number 2, I visited a dentist that we used to work in a practice, worked there for 4 years, and then ended up buying that practice. Okay. The practice is about 3,000 square foot. So she has owned it outright. Well, she's owned it on a loan, not outright, but like she bought the whole practice, and it's been 2.5 years since she purchased this. The doctor that she purchased it from still works there once a week, technically works for her. And she's now ready to renovate the practice. And the practice is major. And I don't know who designed this practice 30 years ago, 40 years ago, but
Is this the
everything,
Pentagon thing?
everything is on an angle. It is like crazy angles,
Right.
and nothing is up to code.
Do you see this thing?
Yes.
She's seen the floor plan.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Nothing is up to code, right? So you touch one, you're touching things. No. Secondly, he's got 7 ops.
Yeah.
They're useless right now because they're very tight. They're open. They're nothing for a general dentist. I'm like shocked that they've been operating from there this long, right? So everything has to be rebuilt. I mean, you're looking at a brand new startup cost, 3,000 square foot, probably going to spend a good 500,000 renovating that, right? Not to mention the equipment is really old. Like she needs new equipment, like new CBCT unit, all the dental chairs. I'm just assuming she's going to spend a good 150, 200 on equipment,
Okay.
right? So she's looking at a total of another 700,000, right? Her challenge is the loan, right? 2.5 years, bought the practice, pulled one loan on it. And I think the problem she's facing is that loan already has a prepayment penalty. And now she's got to get another loan for renovations and stuff. What is your suggestion?
How long? How immediate is the need to?
I mean, if she's older, she's held it for 2.5 years. Can she go another 2.5 years? Probably. She's done it so far.
So most of these prepayment penalties are like 3 years. So if she's at 2.5,
Sure.
do we know when her prepayment?
Assuming the prepayment expires, 3
Expires?
years. I think, yeah.
Yeah, then I would wait. Why would I pay a premium for another 6 months? I've already been living through disorganization for that long, you know.
But one of the
Efficiency.
challenges of purchasing a practice on a loan and then adding more loan to it.
Oh, sure. Okay. So I would look at it from this standpoint. I would look at it from a standpoint of cash flow because the bank's going to look at it from that way. And so long as a good like back of the napkin rule of thumb would be like so long as the practice is generating gross revenue that covers enough over the monthly obligatory payments by 20%. So it needs to exceed it by 20%. And that the personal revenue, or rather the personal expenses, obligatory expenses of the personal, the doc themselves, whatever that amount is, multiply that by 2. And then you add both those up. As long as that actually, the amount of revenue being generated exceeds that, then she'll probably get approved. So I think before she goes through the whole rigmarole of like interviewing lenders and all this, I mean, that is the back of napkin equation that most lenders will use when they do their first intake call. So that's something I would do for her or yourself. We could do the math and be like, you'll get it or you won't. And then look at the prepayment schedule and see if that's ending in the next half year. And then from there, make a move. That's probably the way I would handle it.
I mean, would you recommend her doing this, or would you recommend her?
I would absolutely. I mean,
when it's feasible too, of course.
yeah, but
Would
like
I recommend.
inefficiencies. I mean, that's like you as with a design background. I mean, what does an extra like 10 steps per patient look like
Right.
per day, per year?
Well, not
Right.
only that, I have to tell you that not only she's got 7 ops,
Yeah.
and I just said it, 7 ops are horrible, not usable condition. 2 of them, I found out when I was visiting her, 2 of them are absolutely useless. Like she's not using it.
Oh.
So she's operating off of 5 chairs.
Yeah.
And I got a thing inefficiently operating out of
Yeah.
5 chairs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when you're applying for a loan, can you show you have more chairs to operate out of that'll bring more income?
Yeah, I think you can. I think it's very hard because so long as you have a good comprehensive project manager that's going to look at this and make that presentation, you're even gambling that the underwriter is going to understand the presentation. So it has to be like really clear. We've done this in the past where we're like displaying, hey, look, you know, this is this is their revenue now, and then if they were able to grow into 2 ops, this is what it would look like. And right now their wait time is like 2 months, right? So by doing that simple calculation of like how much revenue is each op generating per month, and then just showing the upside of adding 2 ops, and then displaying the break-even point to the bank, then the bank knows that 1, there's a line out the door, 2, that she or he is losing patients by not being able to see them in a timely fashion, and 3, here's the cost. So then here's the crossroads of where you would break even. It's hard though, because like, let me tell you, man, the banks aren't looking at it that intricately. Like they're not really observing that to that detail. So I think that it's worth the effort, but I don't know.
Sure, but what do you do if you're her? What do you do? If you know you're not 100%?
Yeah, and you can't get the loan.
But you can't get the loan.
Sure. I mean, look, the problem is that you can always get the loan. The question is, can you get the loan at a rate that is reflective of today's rates? Because there are people that will lend you money, whether that's private equity or banks that charge high interest, which we've dealt with when, you know, we've dealt with people that don't have, you know, full citizenship or something like that. Like they'll find those lenders. There's lenders like that out there. It's just that you're talking 12, 15%, you know? And so now the math changes, then you're break even. And now it's a personal decision on like how that works and how confident you are as an operator to do that. But I think it's a simple math equation, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
But from a business perspective, would you renovate? If you knew you had 2 chairs and in return you're confident each chair is going to add 400,000 yearly revenue, which is equaling to 800,000. Would you?
It's not as simple as just adding 2 ops, because looking at the floor plan, it's a square building with a octagon layout that you're having to rearrange a lot more than just adding those 2 ops, right? But like, yes, renovate. However, the question is when. Are you ready to do it when it's sustainable or unsustainable?
Sure,
because
but
like you have to be sustainable to keep the business.
The floor plan and the flow adjustments that you're talking about are not direct savings, right? We all know that she's not, and she can feel she's not efficient,
Sure.
right? But assuming you can't put a dollar figure to that, because how much efficient, right? We can, right? We know it's slower. We know she's under painful conditions and stuff like that, right? One thing that you know, black and white, if I was to tell you, 2 chairs and you were confident enough as the dentist, you are operating that. As a dentist, you're adding 800,000, right? Would you move forward and do it? Even if it's with private equity, even if it's paying a high dollar value for the loan, if the banks are not lending you.
You know, I would go, I hate to keep going back to like banking standards and like the math, but I feel like that's how I make every decision. So the bank will look at it as long as each op for a general dentist is producing $12,000 a month at minimum, because it's supposed to be 20. That's like when you're maxing out, 20, 25. Okay, 20,
To what?
$20,000 to $25,000 a month per op.
Sure.
Right? You're maxing out that op. So for the bank, though, another like sniff test that they have is that they'll look at your production per op on average, and as long as it exceeds $12,000 per month, then let's say the bank is still uncomfortable. Me as an operator, knowing that that is the standard, then I would pursue, you know, private equity or something like that.
You would.
I would, yeah.
What would you do? And you're saying 25,000 a month. I'm saying 800,000 for both ops.
Oh, to
If you knew you were going to add $800,000
oh, but yeah, let's do your
for 2 mats, it's less than 25,000. It's more than 25,000.
Look, regardless, it's gonna add, you know, more production to the practice. If you have 2 functional ops that you're adding on
yeah,
top
you're
of
33.
the 5 functional, like, of course, do it. But how much is it gonna affect the practice to go through and have that, you know, renovation?
Oh, you're going to have to
But
make
then
that,
you're
right?
also gonna have to plan for future when you're able to fully renovate as well. If you're only able to start with
So
2.
a practice like that, and again, I got another one, so I don't want to say too much. A practice like that, if you want to renovate it, you're going to shut it down.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So
Exactly,
there is
but-
that 2-month shutdown period that you're going to go through.
However,
Right.
I'm saying if you can only start with a little bit due to the loan issue. Well,
That's exactly my point.
yeah.
And I want to make sure it's clear for those. Sometimes when you do a little bit by little bit, you're actually hurting yourself.
It
You're
is.
not. You're spending more to eliminate less of the problem, if that makes sense, right? You're not eliminating all the problem, and therefore it's going to keep on costing you more
Right.
and more money.
Well, that was going to be my last recommendation is like, let's plan this entire thing out and see what can be done to get you in the production zone that the bank wants to see, if that's even possible with the layout that
Sure.
exists currently.
Last situation, I'm going to go, right? I visited a doctor, older doctor. He got this place about 20 years ago. He got it with a partner. The space is a 6 operatory practice. They started from scratch. It was a startup, right? And the partner leaves 5 years later, right? However, this doctor is already still there. He's on the older side, and he wants to, potentially in the next 5 years sell the practice. But here's the problem. He's been carrying that practice for 15 years after the partners left. She's renewed the lease twice already. He's only using 2 of the ops. I asked her what the volume he's doing is. He said between 400 and 500,000 per year. Any recommendations? What should have happened if you were the doctor?
Or myself and associate.
That's one option.
I mean, I have so many more questions. This is a leasing circumstance.
Yes,
so,
it is a leasing
So he's
circumstance.
renewed twice.
Twice.
So then he's in his last stretch of 5 years.
That's right.
Okay. So what is it?
Well, what would you have done 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even now? What can
Yeah.
you do? I mean,
What you can
one
do
thing
now-
is downsized, right?
Well, yeah.
Why carry the whole 3,000 square foot of space?
Sure. I mean, that's certainly like an option, right? Like you're at this crossroads of like, okay, I'm at the last leg of this particular lease. I have no more renewal options. So either I am going to grow within this space, right, and maximize it, and I'm probably towards the last leg of my career as well. So I'd probably sign another 10 with 2 5-year options, making sure that the options are transferable, right, in an event of a sale. If I felt confident that I could increase production so that the last 2 years before I sell, maximize the dollar I could sell the practice for. If I don't think I can maximize it and I have too much space on my hands, then yeah, I'm looking for a smaller space. The problem is like that exit strategy, like when this person is looking to like exit dentistry, is completely affected by like their base decision is completely affected by that timeline, because if they don't have enough time to recoup their investment on a full reno of a smaller space, which is still expensive, then you almost have to again find that break-even point. Do I stay and just keep going here and sell it as upside because you can grow into this practice, or do I make the space completely optimal for what my production looks like today, and then again do that down the road? But at some point, if you don't have enough time left prior to retirement, then you're never going to see that return on investment.
I mean, my next thought is renting out your chairs that you do have and you're not
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
That, and then like I would have found an associate back then to start working with, and then eventually, I mean,
I like that one.
That's exactly what I talked to.
That's a great
point. You can always, first, there's many options, right? And your option is now. I'm saying you should have done this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? And you hit right on it. There's multiple options. One, you can sublease the whole place. A lot of people don't know, right, that you can sublease the place. You don't have to stay with it. I asked them why you didn't downsize. And then he said, the landlord wouldn't, because I don't see a way they would. See, I want to make sure it's clear. Right. Well, that's the problem, right? You're making a decision for the landlord.
Yeah.
You always ask.
Right.
Always go for what makes sense for you.
And imagine,
worst thing that can happen is you don't get it.
Well,
right?
Not only you don't get it, but then the secondary like threat is, well, then I'm going to leave your portfolio.
Right.
Like, so have fun with that.
Right.
You know, find me a different space. I'll stay in your portfolio because it's vacant anyways. You can still get a market deal. And you don't have, like we just did that for the other doc that we moved within the same building, right? We helped him evaluate the market, what was available. It made more sense for him to stay within the portfolio in the same building. And instead of us having to time it exact to where his current lease would terminate and that he would move smoothly into the next space, assuming all the construction timelines were aligned, instead of doing that, because he was already in the building's portfolio, they were just like, okay, cool. Whenever you're done building here within a reasonable amount of time, you'll just move into the space and then we'll start the new lease, right? Like, so there's some advantage.
There's options, but I love what Hailee said, because that's exactly what I recommended is at this stage, if you're older, you don't want to bring in an associate, you don't feel like making this, kind of build it and kind of hand it out to your associate buys you out or something like that.
Right.
Best case scenario is rent it out. Bring in a specialist or even another general dentist, have him rent from you on certain days or for certain chairs so that the practice gets busier and you're actually utilizing the place. Because one thing is, I hate waste. You got 6 chairs, using 2 of them, the half of the practice is not even, like, you don't even go to.
Right.
It becomes a waste. But,
I mean, that causes other issues. That's a whole different episode, I think. But not using your equipment, not using your lines, not things.
Well, the other part is instead of renting it to a dentist, now that you're saying it, rent it to other medical. Get 3 of the exam rooms, turn them into a medical exam room, give it to a doctor on certain days.
I was about to say, going back to our first unusual circumstance or different situation, like bring in the esthetician. That's becoming a huge thing.
Yeah, you're seeing that more and more.
Yeah.
Especially pediatric. Like the kids are in there and the moms get
right.
That's all I got for our unique situations. Me visiting practices the past 3 weeks. We'll have more coming your way.